So, hello all. Welcome you all to this presentation. My name is Harsha, and I work in Merck Group, which is headquartered in Darmstadt in Germany. And my role is a product owner for text analytics, responsible for driving a portfolio of project services and a platform around the area of text mining and natural language processing. And the topic I have for today is text analytics and its application in a pharmaceutical domain. So as an agenda for today, I will be starting with providing you a high-level overview of what role a natural language processing plays in general in the pharma industry. And then I will be walking you through a gallery of different applications, use cases, where we have successfully applied NLP for different business problems. So in general, our perspective. So companies like IBM and Gartner estimate that about 80% of the enterprise data is unstructured, could be text. This is true because if I look into our product development lifecycle, starting from the early design of the product to development, to testing, and through post-market, we observe that we either generate or we consume a humongous volumes of unstructured text data, different types of documents, different varieties, different formats. Also, they have a specific different business purposes too. So it's very important that we are able to systematically analyze this data, we are able to search this data, and we are able to extract valuable information and insights from this textual data sources so that we are able to drive business process efficiency or to drive critical business decision as well. So that is where the text analytics or text mining plays a very critical role. So here I have an end-to-end overview of a pharmaceutical or a drug discovery and development process, which goes from early research through clinical and through post-market. And it is a very well-known fact that pharmaceutical development process, it's an extremely slow process. It can take somewhere between 10 to 15 years for a drug to be released in the market, starting from when it was an idea. And through this end-to-end, that's just the cycle of a product, we encounter different types of data and different types of applications where text mining can play a crucial role. So let us start with early research. So early research is a phase where the scientists or researchers are trying to find new ideas or they're trying to find new hypotheses to support the research. And that is where data sources like patents, literature, in-house study data becomes very important. And some of the application areas for text mining here are things like lead optimization, target selection, like identifying new proteins and genes, or to do a prior art search. That is, we want to search all the historical data or historical patents just to understand, are there any new innovation opportunities or are there any white spots that could help in further product improvement. And then we move to a preclinical research. This is the stage where a drug is tested on the animals. And then here we come across different databases and data sources like literature, electronic lab notebooks, laboratory information management systems, and so on. And typical applications where text mining could help is in terms of biomarker discovery, toxicity analysis, or even a design of experiments. That is, we want to learn from historical experiments so that we're able to better design the new experiments. And then we can also eliminate the redundancies in the experiments as well to eliminate the risk of failure of experiments. And then comes the clinical part or clinical research. That is where the medicines are tested on the groups of patients or population of patients. Here we again encounter many different types of data like electronic trial master file records, clinical trial databases, registries, and so on. And typically a role of text mining here could be in terms of helping us in designing a new trial, efficacy assessments. Simply, it could be a trial documentation management as well, because in this whole clinical trial scenario, we end up in generating many different types of documentation for the complete life cycle of a trial. And to be able to efficiently manage and structure the documentation itself is a huge challenge where NLP can play a very crucial role. And then we go to the regulatory affairs. Regulatory affairs is a place where we start now interacting with health authorities like FDA or EMA or other agencies. That is where we get into a situation where we want to get approval for our products. We talk about licenses and so on. And there we speak about different types of data like product summaries, product dossiers, or other type of data sources. And NLP can play a crucial role in terms of helping in terms of expediting the process of submission of information to the health authorities, or it could be simply to be able to automatically identify the amendments or any kind of changes to the regulations that are published over the internet. So we as a pharma company, it's very important that we stay up to date with any kind of changes, any kind of amendments that are already published by health authorities or by regulators, and which helps us to ensure that we make the changes accordingly and stay compliant with the changes that are out or that has been announced by the authorities. And then we move to the manufacturing and supply. So this is where the products are manufactured and they're supplied and they're available for you through pharmacies. In the manufacturing domain, we again come across different types of data like manufacturing deviation documents, procedural documents, SOPs, quality documents, and so on and so forth. And typically, NLP can play a good role here in terms of understanding the manufacturing problems, in terms of efficiently managing the changes, quality, documentation, risk management, and so on. And finally, we move to the post-market analysis. That is where it becomes more complex because so once the product is already out in the market, it is then consumed by our customers or by the patients, and then we receive inquiries, or we speak about social media or electronic health records coming from the hospitals. And that is where the diversity of the data increases significantly, and also the volume of data increases as well. The reason I say diversity is because we now speak about data coming in different languages. The vocabularies that are being used is not very consistent. So people tend to use different names for the same things and so on, right? So basically the vocabulary suddenly increases, which kind of increases more complexity for text mining. So again, where some of the application scenarios here are pharmacovigilance, that trying to identify, are there any side effects that have been reported for our products, to do a real world evidence analysis, or simply could be like a competitive intelligence, trying to understand how good our products are placed in the market and how our products are forcing in the market in comparison to our competitors, for example, or how can we really improve our presence in the market. So looking at this end-to-end scenario, we observe that different types of data being generated and different use case scenarios where NLP can play a very crucial role. So after this, I will be jumping into a set of use cases where we have successfully applied NLP in. So I will be starting with a clinical trial evidence synthesis. So as I already mentioned in the previous slide, the information about the clinical trials is very important and essential for designing the trials, for doing efficacy assessments, or simply for doing a competitor landscaping too. And the business challenge that we have here is that the information about the clinical trials, although they are documented or registered in the clinical trial registries, the information may not be complete or comprehensive. That is, the information about the same clinical trial could be present in clinical trial registries, it could be present in publication, literature, or all different types of databases. So that makes it very hard for a clinical expert to find a single point of truth about what information is published or present about a clinical trial, because it's not just present in one place, it's kind of completely distributed. And this is an industry-wide consistent challenge. It's not a problem only for us, but we have seen very often across the industry that every single company who has been working with clinical trials, they encounter the same challenge to really establish a single point of truth for the clinical trials. We do end up with other types of challenges, like one may end up in copyright issues, text mining rights, data quality integrity issues, but for now, at this point of time, we can try to stay more on a scientific level, and we want to see like how can we really solve the puzzle of linking the trials to the respective publications or other data sources. And one of the analysis that we did, we observed that almost for 30% of the trials, the information is linked, that is from our trial databases to publications. For the remaining 70% of the trials, simply this connection is really missing. So this means that we just don't know where and what kind of information is present about the trial. So in this context, we executed a research project. Also, the work has been published in one of the conference proceedings as well. It should be available online soon. So the goal here was to identify a mechanism or to develop a new mechanism by which we are able to automatically make a link between the clinical trials and the publication abstracts that are present in the PubMed. And we use clinicaltrials.gov and PubMed as a starting point. Given that for 30% of the trials, we already know the connections. This means that we already know the ground truth, the truth of the publication links. So we used that as a basis for creating a training data and the evaluation data. We evaluated different query strategies like trying to use different types of keywords from clinical trials, using the metadata from the clinical trials, and trying to query against the PubMed database. So the whole goal here was to really bring the articles from PubMed, which can potentially be linked to the clinical trials. And then we also developed a supervised machine learning approach to re-rank the trials. So the whole idea was that we start with a clinical trial, we formulate a query automatically, we query against PubMed, and we retrieve the hits from PubMed, and we try to apply a supervised machine learning algorithm, which can potentially rank or recommend articles that are linked to the clinical trials. So as a result of this work, the results were pretty satisfactory, which are not really great, because for almost 50% of the public, for the clinical trials, we were able to make publication linking with a performance of 90%. And this means that for the remaining 50% of the trials, the performance was less than 90%. This means definitely there is more work and more research to be done in this direction. And the second key observation was that using a supervised machine learning approach, we were able to improve the ranking performance by 15%. So this means if we did not employ a machine learning approach, if we simply went with a typical traditional query strategy, we would have, let's say, missed about 15% of the results. So machine learning helped us to boost the performance by roughly about 15%. So the next use case I have is IDMP regulatory submissions. IDMP stands for Identification of Medicinal Products. So this is a new ISO norm that has been rolled out by EMA. And so all the pharma companies or drug manufacturers are obliged to submit the product information back to the authorities in a predefined standards, which is a new ISO standards. And the challenge that we have, or it's a challenge across the industry, is we have the data in both structured and unstructured formats. So when I speak structured formats, I'm talking about RIMS databases or other similar databases, where the challenge is, let's say, it's more simpler, given it's more a data integration kind of challenge. But the real problem comes with the unstructured data sources, because we have documents like summary of product characteristics, module 3 composition, manufacture documents, and these are really huge documents with 20 to sometimes 100 pages long. And somebody has to now automatically, extract the information from these documents, structure them as per the IDMP specifications, and submit it back to the authorities. So it's extremely time-consuming task. So the goal of applying text mining here was, can we automatically extract all the valuable or the meaningful information from the documents, structure them as per the new IDMP specifications so that we can expedite the submission. So that is how the business goal here was. So the benefits that we expect is efficiency, tremendous savings on the time and effort, because we don't have to now read the documents by hand manually, but rather there is a machine augmented way where how you can quickly process the document, submit the information back to the authorities. And last but not least, quality and compliance as well, because if we submit error-prone data back to authorities, it may lead to compliance and other issues. So it also helps us to stay compliant with our submissions as well. So the approach that we used for IDMP was more a rule and dictionary based approach. What you can see on the right hand side, this is a system that is a front end where user gets access to documents that he is curating. He can see all the machine extracted information, and then there is an option for the user to make corrections to the system or to the information that has been extracted. And he can basically say, okay, I now have completed my curation work, and the document is now ready, let's say, prepared to be submitted to the authorities or for doing the further processing. We could not go with a machine learning approach because it was very challenging to get a labeled data, especially for this business case. So we leveraged more rules and dictionaries. The system is pretty sensitive to the section information and also to the tables. Because if you look at this document, right, we have sections, we have subsections, sometimes subsections, and so on. So there's a pretty kind of a pre-structured documents. And sometimes information in some sections could be even present in the tables as well. So the system has been designed in such a way that it can extract information from different parts of a document. Either it could be tabulated or it could be tabular, whatever it is. We employed an iterative development approach where we had 5 rounds of development iteratively, and we worked on 3 languages, or data from 3 languages, that is English, German, and French. And the system went live last year. So this means we also employed a mechanism for monitoring the model integrity and the system integrity, which means we have a proper lifecycle management of the system. That is, whenever the model drifts, the performance drifts, we have a mechanism in place where we can go back, we can retrain, or we can re-engineer the rules and the dictionaries so that we are able to bring back the performance of the system. So as a result of the initial training, let's say the rule development, we were able to achieve a performance of approximately 95%, which is a pretty good performance because almost 95% of the work is already done by a machine. This means the remaining 5% is something that is left for an end user or an expert to do the curation. So that was a pretty good results that we obtained for this specific project. So going forward, since the IDMP for this specific use case, we had to work in a GXP environment. So GXP could stand for good laboratory practices, good clinical practices, good manufacturing practices, and so on. So when you want to set up any kind of IT system that has to work in such a controlled environment, there are a predefined set of practices. There are a lot of norms and guidelines in terms of how do you set up your system and how do you manage the life cycle of your system. So we follow a so-called as a CSV model, computer system validation model, which is a typical waterfall model which is followed across the industry to set up an IT systems in such a regulated environment. So the approach that we had was quite unique in the sense we tried to combine a sprint or agile methodology together with the waterfall model. So we try to use waterfall model as well in the background, but we try to rather hit the deliverables and the milestones rather through sprints. So in this way, we were able to basically bring both the worlds together. And in the same article that will be published, we also discuss about some of the challenges that we observed during our industrialization project. We speak about enterprise security, audit trial, and how do you design a system, a loosely coupled system, what kind of benefit it brings. And we also speak about the entire lifecycle management of the system in terms of how do we manage the system once it is live, and how do we manage the models, and how do we manage the changes and all these things. So it's kind of completely described in the article that has been referred here. Next use case is in the manufacturing sector. So here what happens is whenever there is any problems in the manufacturing domain, which means either it could be a man-made error, or it could be a wear and tear of an equipment, or could be anything. So what happens is the first thing is a site operator is now logging information about what problem happened, which means what was the deviation, what was the manufacturing problem. And then it goes to root cause investigation. And after root cause investigation, there is a corrective and preventive action. And the idea is to basically to define a set of mitigation, let's say, strategies so that you're able to minimize or to suppress the deviations. So that's the whole goal. And the 2006 FDA guidelines and quality system encourages all the drug manufacturers to continuously monitor the systems, to monitor the data, to resolve the problems, identify and resolve the problems, and to anticipate and even prevent new problems if possible. So here the goal was, given that these deviations or corrective and preventive actions or root cause analysis, everything is completely unstructured text data. It's all written by, let's say, by Q&A managers and so on. So the goal here was, how do we really apply text mining to automatically find the more recurrent deviations so that we can define more effective root cause investigations, and we can define more effective kappas so that the deviations don't really recur going forward. Again, expected business benefits are tremendous savings in time and effort, because without text mining, then somebody would have to read all these deviations by hand and take a decision, so which is extremely time-consuming process. Of course, one could even imagine even minimizing the deviations going forward. And most importantly, we de-risk the time to the market, which means if there is an outstanding deviation on a batch of products that is out in the godowns, then this product cannot be shipped out to the market until the deviation has been closed. So basically, the process also helps in kind of minimizing the overall time to the market as well. So the approach here was mostly, we had two important features. One is a similarity finder and a clustering mechanism, which were, let's say, the main differentiating factors. So what I'm showing you here are some of the mock-ups. I'm not allowed to show the real tool here. So what the similarity finder does is, for a given deviation at any point of time, it tries to find all the similar deviations in the past based on a statistical, let's say, kind of a term similarity measures, you can say. That was one of the features which would help experts or Q&A managers to automatically screen the system and say, like, for a given deviation I observed today, were there any other deviations in the past which are similar in nature? So can I really define any better actions to kind of handle this deviation? So that was one of the key critical component of the system. The second component, key feature of the system is the clustering, where we employed an unsupervised machine learning approach to cluster all the deviations so that we are able to see, are there any deviations that are very similar in nature and that are more repetitive? So the deviations that are similar and more repetitive are the ones that kind of becomes the higher priority, because we know that these kind of problems are more often appearing over the period of time, and we need to really kind of have more resources to ensure that we are able to kind of handle or tackle these deviations as soon as possible so that it doesn't really recur going forward. So in this way, we were able to employ text mining to kind of find similar deviations, to find more repetitive deviations, so that we are able to better define proper root cause investigations or CAPAs. And the last use case I have for today is the customer service analytics. Of course, once the product goes into the market and once they're available in the pharmacies, and then we receive all kinds of inquiries, or kind of sometimes complaints from different types of customers who are using our products. It could be like physicians, could be pharmacies, patients, sales representatives, and so on. So one of the challenges that our medical information team faces is, how do we understand the voice of the customers? Because we receive inquiries, thousands of inquiries every year from different channels, from call centers, by emails, by phone, and so on. And the challenge is, like, how do we better understand what kind of inquiries we receive so that we are able to provide a better response to our customers. So we are able to streamline the turnover to our customers. We could even influence the product strategy. For example, if the information is not sufficient, we may have to probably provide more information on our websites. We may have to kind of roll out more educational programs and so on, so that we can provide or communicate better information about our products. And most importantly, to identify and mitigate risks as early as possible. So if there are customers who are not happy with using the products, or if they have any kind of problems, then there is an option where we can get back to our customers, and we are able to, let's say, help and influence that they don't really switch from our products to other products. So in this way, we try to ensure that we minimize the churn of our customers. So the application here was, so again, we employed different types of text mining techniques. We extracted all the themes, or let's say all the important phrases or important terms that are present in all the inquiries. We used medical entity extraction to extract all the medical information from the inquiries. Some important piece of this work is we jointly with the business colleagues, we were able to develop a kind of a categorization which categorizes the inquiries into the predefined categories, like it's a dosage and formulation, could be a disease state, could be clinical trial, and etc. So which would basically help us in categorizing the inquiries into this predefined categories. And we also employed a mechanism for doing a topic-centric sentiment analysis. So if you look at the sentiment analysis in the market nowadays, typically we end up classifying a documents or identifying a sentiments on a document level or on the sentence level. But what was unique about this work is we are able to identify the sentiments on a topic level and not really on the entire sentence level or on the entire record level. So this is the mechanism that we used. So currently what we have been working on, this is still a work in progress, and we are currently working on a weekly supervised approach. Since we did not have a pre-labeled training data that we could use, so we had to do a categorization, let's say using more heuristics and kind of more rules. And what we are currently trying to do is to have to go in the direction of a weekly supervised machine learning, where we try to use the categories coming from the heuristic approach and to train a supervised machine learning algorithm, which is able to now kind of predict the categories for all the inquiries. And we are also working in the direction of automatic question generation. That is, given an inquiry or a set of inquiries, like we want the system to automatically generate a question and say like, these are the potential questions that inquiries is really talking about, so that we can better focus on set of inquiries. As a result of this work, we had very interesting observations. So we observed a lot of inquiries where there were unexpected off-label use of our products. We observed several suspected drug interactions that let's say that were not present in the label of the product. Some suspected contraindications, some combination treatments. So this means some physicians were using our product, other products, which at least that we are not recommending. So we had some very interesting observations that our medical inquiry or the medical information team could take with them, so that they're able to, let's say, roll out a better educational programs for our customers and for the patients. So with this, I am done with, let's say, the use case gallery of some of the successful use cases of NLP at least within our company. Although we have many, given the limited amount of time, I'm able to just showcase only a few examples of them. So overall, looking at a general industry perspective, right? So one of the challenges that we see is availability of the label data. We often see a lot of improvements and a lot of new things happening, especially in the machine learning and the deep learning and AI world. And one of the challenges that we face is having access to the label data it's still not very easy. So this means the labeling is still a very expensive process. It's still a time-consuming process, and it's not very easy to convince our business colleagues to label the data. We have observed a lot of state-of-the-art techniques that have proven success on the public data, like PubMed Central, clinical trials, or Twitter, and so on. But any kind of transfer learning using the models trained on the public data to apply on the non-public data is not that straightforward. At least that has been our experiences. So there has been a lot of work going on in the direction of semi-supervised learning, the weekly supervised learning, transfer learning, active learning, and so on. So although we try to investigate and we try to work, the success chance is always like 50-50. So we are never 100% sure that one may work and one may not. So what is important is that the NLP community, especially who are working with the non-public data, and if there are any successful use cases of this next generation NLP techniques, and it's good that if you can publish more and more information, so that at least we can share the knowledge consistently, and we're able to, let's say, take the NLP to the next stage going forward from here. And my last slide for the day. So this has been at least our learnings. So text analytics is a valuable asset. It's a repurposable asset for any industries. We started with our text mining journey a couple of years before, and we had only a couple of use cases in mind when we started off. And now we easily observe that once we started to do text mining on a specific set of use cases, it is very easily possible that you kind of scale up and you're able to kind of handle new challenges over the period of time. Evolution, which means the text mining is definitely an evolutionary domain. So there are new solutions, there are new tools, there are new techniques that are published time to time. And it is very important that we envision an open-ended systems so that we're able to accommodate the changes that are out in the market. So one should try to envision more open-ended systems and not have a closed monolithic systems, so that we can accommodate the changes more rapidly that are happening in the market. So trust is a very important thing because very often we hear from our customers or our colleagues that, so how do you trust the results coming out of text mining or any kind of AI or NLP kind of systems? So what is very important to understand is that the decision support system, right, based on NLP or AI and so on, may not be the single point of truth. So this means if you want to take business critical decisions, there is still an opportunity for us to still go back to the original source of the data, verify and validate before rolling out any business critical decision. So this means, so AI-based systems are still augmentary in nature, but may not still be a real point of truth. So this is very important to understand. And finally, the sustainability. This means that one can maximize the value of any text mining or AI system only when we are developing a sustainable solutions out of it. So doing research projects and POCs and one-offs could help in understanding the potential of the solution. But if you really want to maximize the value and if you want to maximize the ROI of the solution, then it's important that we are able to build a long-term sustainable solutions which are used on a daily basis. Yeah, so with this, I would like to thank you for your time and to be able to join this presentation. And I'd also like to thank the organizers of this session as well. And I look forward to any questions and discussions. Thank you.